Well, welcome everybody. I am so excited to have you join us. I'm just looking at the chat box and getting a sense of where everyone is from. I'm going to start off by just giving a little history of Scholé Academy. Some of you might already be taking classes with Scholé from the year we just finished, or even longer than that. And some of you could be new. So just really quickly, kind of tell you our story of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So in 2014, Scholé Academy started off small with classes in logic and Latin. And we quickly grew and continued to add disciplines. And specifically tonight, we're talking about the Aquinas House of Studies, but the Aquinas House is the third house that we launched, but we acquired our first house in 2018, and it is the St. Raphael School. The school was already an online Orthodox school, and so Presbytera is here tonight. She's helping with questions. And then the second house we started is the Canterbury House in the Anglican tradition. And then here we are launching, just like Joe said, in its inaugural year, 2022-23, the Aquinas House of Studies for our Catholic families and for students who are interested in the Catholic faith and church history and art and so many other things that are going to come from the Aquinas House. So it's very exciting. This ecumenical mission is something that was always in the plan for Scholé Academy. So Dr. Perrin and Jolie Hodge and others who initiated Scholé Academy from the very beginning had this plan to have 3 houses of studies, and those houses were always meant to be Orthodox Catholic and in the Anglican and broader Reformed Protestant tradition. So this is really exciting, specifically about the Aquinas House. So we're starting off small. We are growing the house a class or 2 at a time, although in our first year, we're launching with 7 classes. So we're really excited about that. I am grateful for a team of volunteers that we've had, which includes Scholé Academy parents who have emailed me, who have shared their hopes and suggestions and just great ideas to help the house flourish. And then, of course, through our hiring process, we've met amazing instructors like Miss Monica, who's here tonight. You're going to get to learn more about her in just a minute, and of course, experience a class. But in terms of where we want to go for the house, we certainly want to continue to add classes in the following academic year and keep doing that every year. So you'll notice when you go to the Scholé Academy website, we have a tab, and if you'll bear with me, I'll just kind of share my screen here so you can kind of walk with me through this virtual campus. But when you go to scholeacademy.com, you'll see the tab for the houses. And when you click on Aquinas, you'll see we kind of break up who we are in terms of the mission and vision. This contributors tab is one I would like to just draw your attention to. This is for parents, educators, priests, deacons, anyone that is in the Catholic community who's interested in what we're doing. Contributors can be people who are not necessarily hosting classes, but they have great ideas. They're curriculum writers. They were looking for a spiritual director, so priest for our house. And so you can reach out to us with your ideas or maybe even recommendations you have for instructors that we should reach out to. And you can do that by emailing support@scholeacademy.com. And Presbytera, if you don't mind just putting that email in the chat box for everyone to see that. That's our main email. So anytime you have a question about Scholé Academy at large or any one of our houses, you can just go to support@scholeacademy.com. So the broader mission of Scholé Academy, our classes are classical, they're restful, they're engaging, they are personal. And this is what you'll also find in our houses of studies. The classes within the houses are specific to the Christian tradition. So teachers in the Aquinas house are practicing Catholics. As a part of our application process, they demonstrate that they are practicing, that they're participating in a parish, and that, of course, they have the background to teach the discipline, but also to be a mentor and a formator. And that's what's so critical about our houses of studies, is that we are working with instructors who want to partner with families, to walk alongside you, to support the teaching of the Catholic faith with your children. And so we're really excited about that. And we're grateful to have this opportunity to do it online, to reach as many families as possible. So a little bit more in terms of what's coming next, and then I will pass it to Miss Monica. But I want to certainly introduce her. She's going to talk a little bit about herself in just a minute here, but she's been working in Catholic religious education for over a decade. She currently serves as the Director of Youth Ministry and Religious Formation at a parish in New Orleans. She has a BA in English and a minor in Early Christian Studies. She has an MA in Divinity from the University of Chicago, where she focused on biblical studies and Koine Greek. So we are just thrilled with her level of expertise, but more than that, her love for the church, for Catholicism. And then I love what she says in her bio, how she works with the mediums of literature, music, and art to teach the faith, but to cultivate that love for the church. So with that, Monica, I'm going to pass it to you, and you can bring us into the classroom experience.
Okay, well, thank you, Joanne. I guess you said a lot of the things I was going to say about myself, but I will add that when you say that my passion for teaching theology through literature, music, and art, that goes back to being a child, always loving reading, loving music. I would just spend hours reading lyrics of songs when I was growing up. My first job was at a CD store, and I basically begged for the job, and was so happy when I got to work there. So I know even today and throughout our whole lives, we are connected to art and music in a deeply spiritual way that we sometimes don't get a chance to articulate and to talk about with other people, other than what's your favorite song and that kind of thing. So I'm very excited to be here. I like to use those in my job at the Catholic Church, Our Lady of the Rosary, that I work at. And we're a military family, so we move around a lot. So I've taken that as kind of being a Christian missionary spirit with everywhere we move, trying to find a church to jump into. Sometimes it's been as a volunteer job, a paid job, all different kinds of ways to stay involved. And when I heard about Aquinas House, actually, Presbyter Koulianos was my son's first teacher through Scholé Academy. He took a summer class. And so I love the mission, and I've been waiting eagerly for the Aquinas House to open to participate both through my children, hopefully taking some classes, and I have 4 children, and also just to be able to contribute as a parent and as an instructor. So if we'll have time for questions later, I will say I didn't go to Catholic universities. I went to University of Michigan and University of Chicago. I was very heavily linked in with the Catholic ministries at those schools. But I wanted to go and study religion in an ecumenical way so that I could minister to all different types of people in many different religions and religious backgrounds. So it was later that I also got a degree, a certificate from a Catholic school, Providence College. So yeah, so there we are. So I think without further ado, we can begin, and I will begin the class. And I'm going to, common thing that you'll see in Scholé Academy classes is screen sharing, as Mrs. S just demonstrated. So I'm going to share my screen. And even though we are in the modern era, I am not super technologically savvy, so I apologize. But here we are. Let's see. Does that come through without a bunch of stuff on it, or is there something in the way here?
No, it looks great.
Good. Okay. So a lot of times you'll show up to class and there'll be a little introduction. I might put a question on there, something to start thinking about, maybe have a song playing. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but I know that a class that my son is in, there's always music playing when he gets to class, which I think is lovely. So we'll figure that out. So here we are. This is today. And we'll get to this in just a second. We're going to open in prayer. And as you'll see right here, you can kind of start Lilia, Abigail, and Sebastian start to kind of try to break this down in your mind. If you know French already, then you might know how to say this perfectly, but I'll explain it to you. So today we're talking about a piece of religious art from a holy card that was very special to this saint, Saint Therese of Lisieux. And so for just an introduction, if we could all just go around and introduce ourselves, to say your first name and your favorite saint. And it can be Saint Therese. So I will start. My name is Miss Monica. You can call me Mrs. Meinhardt, Miss Monica. And one of my favorite saints, this is a hard question. It's kind of a trick question. One of my favorites is Saint John of the Cross. And he is mentioned a lot by Saint Therese in the book that I just held up. So he was a favorite of hers, and he's a favorite of mine too. One of the first spiritual writings that I really read was his Dark Night of the Soul. Who wants to go next? You can just unmute and go ahead, Abigail. I saw your hand up.
Hello, I'm Abigail, and my favorite saint actually is Saint Therese of Lisieux, and I love her so much because she never did something out of this world. She never made or did a miracle, and she just taught people that you can become a saint by using the little way.
Yes, that's awesome. So you know a lot about her. That's great, Abigail. All right. Joanne, I'm not seeing the full panel on my side, so I'm not sure if that's something that you can fix. So if Lilia, if you're raising your hand, I don't see it.
Is your view on gallery? Because it could just be on speaker.
Let's see. Okay, I think I got it now. So I'll go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so Sebastian, Lilia, which one's next? Lilia, I see your hand first, so go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Lilia, and my favorite saint is probably Joan of Arc, because she was so brave, always, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And she was very special to Saint Therese also. Saint Therese loved Joan of Arc. Lots of good connections here. All right, Sebastian, you're up.
My name is Sebastian, and my favorite saint is Saint Agnes. I don't really know why, but I recently learned that she's the patroness of gardeners, and I love gardening, so maybe that just happened somehow.
I think definitely there's God at play there. That's awesome. All right, so we are going to start with a prayer. You know, the Hail Mary. We're going to make the sign of the cross in French because Saint Therese was French. So it sounds like this. I'll say it once and then we'll actually say our prayer. Au nom du Père et du Fils et du Saint-Esprit. Okay? Au nom du Père et du Fils et du Saint-Esprit. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In nom du Père et du Fils et du Saint-Esprit. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. So I mentioned we're going to look at an image that was very special to Saint Therese, and this is it. So she mentions this in her book, Story of the Soul, and I was able to find, believe it or not, on Etsy, a copy of this holy card. You can buy it on Etsy if you want to, but I just took a photo of it, and it's really beautiful. If you notice, it's opened. It opens up. It's trimmed in lace here, and you can open up the front of it. On the front side, there's writing. On the inside, there's writing, and down below, there's writing. So I just want to open it up to all three of you to just tell me what you notice. I kind of gave you the background, but what's first thing that pops out to you about this holy card? Abigail?
First thing that I notice is the dove on the olive branch, and I think that's pretty significant.
Where is it? I don't think I ever noticed that.
I think it's below his hands. He's making a sign to it, the sign of peace with his hands.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that as a dove, but it makes perfect sense. That's amazing that that's the first thing that popped out to you. I love that. This is the beauty of art. You can stare at an image over and over again and something new comes out every time. So what do you think is significant about the dove then?
I think that it's significant because the dove is the symbol of peace. And when Noah and his ark, when he was out at sea, the dove was what brought back the olive branch, which is why I think that the dove is on the olive branch, because it signifies hope and peace.
Very nice. Thank you. Sebastian?
What stands out to me is that the plant is just coming out of a crack in the rocks and stones, and there's no more plants, but there's just one tiny little plant right under Jesus's hands.
Okay, you guys are good because I also didn't really think about that. I've got this whole lesson planned, and those are two things that I didn't even think about. I mean, it, again, makes perfect sense. Yes, there's so much there. That is, there's no grass, there's no fertile soil, and there's only one. Lilia, do you notice anything that's kind of just, I mean, it can be really obvious too, because this is not your average holy card. I will go that far.
Yeah, it's gray. It has no color. And there's bars like in that, like the like in that little area. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you notice to the top left, and on the bottom it says Le Petit Fleur du Divin Prisoner. So this is the little flower of the divine prisoner. And the title Divine Prisoner, it has been assigned to Jesus other times too, that he's this divine prisoner of love. So I'm going to skip to the next just so that you can kind of see a little bit zoomed in. So why is Jesus in prison? What does that mean? What is that about? And Abigail?
I think it's because he has a destiny, and that's to sacrifice his life, and he can't really get out of that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I can see that. Any other ideas? Go ahead, Abigail.
Also, since he has to sacrifice his life, I noticed that there's a little tablecloth with a cross on it at the very bottom. And every Sunday at Mass, they offer the Holy Eucharist. And since Jesus is the bread of life and he's in the prison, so I think he's signifying the Eucharist right here.
Yeah, so you are spot on there with signifying the Eucharist, and very, very similar to that, or really the same thing. But so you notice the cloth, the altar cloth, Jesus symbolizing the Eucharist. So what else is in the picture that gives us a clue to specifically what in the church this is representative of? Lilia?
The tabernacle?
Yes. And what maybe gave that away in the picture?
Well, there's like a door right there.
Yeah, you see the little keyhole. So I don't know if you ever noticed before Mass, sometimes the tabernacle is already unlocked. Somebody unlocks it ahead of time, but usually there's a sacristan who goes and unlocks the tabernacle before Mass. So it's usually locked after Mass. And that is where the remainder of the hosts used during the Mass are stored in the tabernacle. So yeah, so this is representing Jesus in the Eucharist, in the tabernacle. Now it's all, I'm going to go back to what Lilia said at first. She knows it's all one color. It's all black and white. So that doesn't remind us of real, a real tabernacle, right? What are we used to when we walk into a church and we find the tabernacle? Sebastian?
Everything's bright and golden and silver, and it's not usually made of stone or anything.
Yes, that's true. So what would that kind of, do any of you play music? and know anything about the difference between like major and minor chords? So minor chords typically sound what, happy or sad? Sebastian?
Sad.
They're sad. And so I think of black and white, not that all black and white things are sad, but I think kind of attribute black and white in this instance to minor chords. So it kind of draws that out. This is not shiny. This is not beautifully decorated like we would see in a church that we would go into today. So here's Jesus in the tabernacle. So obviously Jesus, because we can see through these prison bars. So again, the divine prisoner. So now let's step outside of that. And what do you see? What do you think of with this flower, this branch growing out of this crack in the stone? Sebastian?
Jesus is trapped in, well, not trapped, but he's the prisoner, and he doesn't need much, but the little plant, even though it's tiny, still accompanies him and brings him joy.
Yeah, so what's he doing with his hands? Abigail?
He's making the sign of peace.
So he's got the blessing sign, the sign of peace there. And what else is he doing with his hands? Sebastian?
He's putting them through the bars.
Yeah, so he's reaching out. I mean, imagine what you can obviously think, we hear the word prisoner, we think of someone who's done a crime, right? Someone who's a bad guy. Well, Jesus isn't a bad guy, but he's paid for our crime through, he's paid for our sin. So in essence, he's the ultimate prisoner because he's taken on all of our sin. So he's behind bars and he's reaching his hands out towards this flower that's blooming, and it's the only one there. So what do you think of that? It's the only one there. Sebastian?
It's like he doesn't need, it will make him happy. Thing.
I think you cut out a little bit. Say that one more time.
Anything that's like offered up to him, even if it's really tiny or small, it will still make him joyful.
Yeah, so a word that's used a lot in St. Therese's book, Story of the Soul, and many of the saints' lives is the word consolation, something that consoles you, something that brings you comfort. And so Jesus, except for during the Mass, when we celebrate the Eucharist, Jesus in the Eucharist is trapped. I don't know who said that, but I think Sebastian may have said that, trapped in the tabernacle. And unless we visit him there, then he's just there, and he's always there. And so I'm going to just go to this picture right here of one of, there are many different type of tabernacles. Yours probably all look different from each other. But you know, what does the candle represent next to the tabernacle? What does that mean? Lilia?
That Jesus is inside.
Yeah, so in very rare times during the church year, the tabernacle's empty, or maybe there's something going on at the church and the tabernacle's empty and the candle won't be lit. But most 99% of the time, the candle's going to be lit nearby, and that means that Jesus is present there. And so he just waits. He waits. And when we get to Mass, you know, we genuflect, and then we normally just jump right into Mass. We might not look at the tabernacle very often. We kind of wait until the liturgy of the Eucharist to start thinking about what's really happening. And then Jesus goes out in us. And what happens if we receive Jesus in the Eucharist? What do we become in essence? Lilia?
We become like a tabernacle.
Yeah, and if you think about that, comparing it to this tabernacle, what do we become? We become these little prisons unless we do what? Sebastian?
Unless we are like faithful to him.
Yeah, and unless we share him with others and through our actions, through our lives. So many people come and receive Jesus in the Eucharist. And I'm sure, we're all guilty of it, going and receiving very quickly or not really thinking about it, or sitting back down instead of kneeling and praying, or leaving church. And the first thing you do when you get in the car is yell at your brother or sister. So we have all these moments throughout our days where we're not really demonstrating that we're little tabernacles, and Jesus is imprisoned when we do that. And so if we want to be that flower shining forth and consoling Jesus inside of us, our opportunity to do that is through our actions and through our love for other people and the way we live our lives. Now, one last question about the flower. So what do you notice about just that flower in this picture? Anything specific to the type or how many branches or how many leaves? Abigail?
Notice that the flower hasn't bloomed yet.
Yeah, it hasn't fully bloomed.
Or it hasn't fully bloomed.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's bloomed, but just small, and maybe to the right of it, there's another small bud, and to the right of that, another small bud. And all of those leaves could be flowers one day. So while this could represent one person, it could represent a whole church too. And maybe just one of those people has recognized Jesus fully, and it comes and goes with us in our faith. It could represent one person, but just different times of your life. One day you come 20 minutes early to Mass and you pray and you really meditate on Jesus being present. And then the next time you go to Mass, you're just hungry and you can't think about anything else. So lots of different things to think about there. So with that, I'm going to pretend that I sent you off and gave you a homework assignment, and you are welcome to do this. And if you ever wanted to email it to me, I would be happy to look at it. And this will be a future homework assignment for the class that I'm hosting in the fall. So the homework assignment is take this image and turn it into your own holy card. You're essentially making a holy card or making a religious image that reminds you of something else in the spiritual life, something else that we do as Catholics, as Christians, similar to this image. So I gave Sebastian that assignment, and we're going to just talk just a couple of minutes. We can kind of quiz Abigail and Lilia on what they think this is a picture of. So here's his homework assignment that he turned back in. And Sebastian, you'll have a chance to explain it, but we'll give Abigail and Lilia a minute to kind of think about how is this similar and what's going on here. Abigail?
I noticed that there's a little kneeling stool. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. And there's a little cross on the top. And I think that little areas for praying and all those flowers around them, it's really beautiful because you see what God created.
Lilia?
I think it's more like a confessional, because the screen, it looks like someone's behind it, like a priest, and the little kneeler is right there. And yeah,
You see something in the right hand corner?
Yeah, I see a shoe and someone walking out.
Yeah. So now apply that to what we just talked about. So Abigail, you said it's really beautiful. It shows people's prayers and love for Jesus. So specifically to confession, Sebastian, do you want to share what this is?
So it is a confessional, and it looked like that because during confession, the priest is technically Jesus, and Jesus was behind those bars in that holy card. So the priest is behind the confessional screen thing, or whatever it is. And then there's flowers all around it, and the person that's leaving left only the littlest flowers in the middle there. I'll get to that in a second. But all the flowers represent, and plants represent, all the sins that have been offered up to all the sins that were confessed to Jesus. And all the plants make it happier in the confessional. And the tiny flower represents that somebody who wasn't that brave or anything, but they wanted to go to confession, and they had this really bad sin to confess, but they couldn't afford a flower to buy. So they just picked flowers and put it in a cup and filled it with water. And those flowers make the biggest difference in that room. That's why they're in the center, because it came from somebody who almost couldn't put any flowers there, but they had to in order to make Jesus happy. Well, not in order to, but they wanted to make him happier.
That's awesome. I love how there are different flowers, which St. Therese talks about how, boring life would be if there were just roses, but how all the small flowers and the big flowers and all the different styles, that's what makes life beautiful. That's God's creation. And we all have different talents and things to offer and ways to glorify God. And so this is really representative of that. And also, fun fact, confessional. So sometimes you go to confession and the priest, sometimes there's a long line, sometimes there's a couple of people, sometimes no one's there, but the green light is on and the priest is just sitting there in the confessional waiting. And I'm sure that many times he's just sat there and no one's come, or maybe one person has come. And even though the fun fact is that you can contact a priest for confessional any hour of the day. So I learned that in college. If you just have a sin that you have to confess, you could knock on his door at 2 a.m. I mean, he might be tired, but he is obligated to hear your confession. So in the same way that Jesus waits for us in the tabernacle, Jesus waits for us in confession. So, all right. So we're going to close in prayer. We're going to make the sign of the cross in French again. Are there any questions? Any final thoughts? Okay. And one more parallel to the prison, Jesus said in the Gospel of Matthew that whatever you do for the least of his people, you do for him. And so there are prisons throughout our world where if Jesus isn't present in everyone, if we really believe that everyone has been created in the image of God, then there are prisons throughout the world, not just the prisons where, bad guys go, but there are prisons throughout the world where people are lonely. And I think especially the past couple of years, people have been lonely, and there are different ways to visit people. We can visit people in our prayers. But I just want you to think in our closing prayer, we're going to ask you for an intention, a prayer intention, and then I'll lead us in prayer. So if everyone could just go around and offer, say, a prayer intention for someone that's kind of imprisoned in some way, some group of people. So I'm thinking, I'll start. I'm thinking of maybe someone in a hospital who doesn't have a lot of family, or is just feeling lonely and sad because of whatever procedure they might have to have if they're near the end of their life. So that's my prayer intention. Who would like to go next? Sebastian?
It's a prayer intention, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to pray for all the animals in the world. Yeah.
There are probably many animals who are lonely and sad. Maybe one's in zoos, maybe one's in other countries. Endangered animals. All right, Abigail, Lilia. Abigail?
My prayer intention is for my cousin who currently lives in China, and it's been quite tough lately.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be hard to be so far away from family. We'll pray for your cousin. And Lilia, do you have an intention?
Yeah, for my friend who's going through cancer treatment.
That would definitely be very, very hard to do. We'd feel very alone sometimes. So let's pray for them. I'll lead us in prayer, but we'll all make the sign of the cross together. Au nom du Père et du Fils et du Saint-Esprit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this time that we've spent together reflecting on what it means for you to be a prisoner of love in the tabernacle, that you wait for us. We ask that you hear all of these intentions we've mentioned and those in our hearts. We ask you to be with anyone who feels lonely with us when we feel lonely and we feel as though no one understands us or we're just confused and looking for answers. We ask that you guide us and you lead us close to you. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. In nom du Père et du Fils et du Saint-Esprit. Thank you, Abigail, Sebastian, and Lilia, so much. You're free to go. And I just really appreciate all of your insight. I learned a lot personally. I know I'm the teacher, but I learned a lot. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Monica. That was excellent. And students, thank you so much for coming tonight and participating. We appreciate you so much. Thank you. So what we'd like to do now is turn it over for Q&A. And I know we've got some questions that have started to populate. And if by chance you put your question in the chat box, don't worry. We can also scroll through that as well to make sure that we don't miss anyone's questions. So I'm going to go to the first question. And Monica, I'll read it to you if you're not able to see it. But the first question from Anonymous is, how can Jesus be God, therefore omnipresent and omnipotent, be trapped in the tabernacle?
Yeah.
So it's a theology question.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a misnomer. When we think of trapped and we think of pain upon Jesus, in order for the whole process to work in Christianity, right? Jesus had to be fully 100% human and 100% divine. And so it feels a little funny when we attribute these qualities to him as being trapped. But truly what we're kind of getting at here is this idea that his love that could be spread through us as conduits of his love, that's trapped. Jesus within us stays within us, within the tabernacle, within a good book, within scripture, stays there unless we are his hands and feet. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Another question, can Jesus be separated from us, or is it more that we are not allowing him to be intelligible to us in our hearts? These are good questions tonight.
Yeah, it's a good question. So one, I'm going to try to demonstrate this with my hands. This comes up a lot when we talk about confession. Actually, we just talked about confession at the end there. A good visual I often give to students is when we are far from God, it's as though God is right here and we're here. And when we sin, we move further away. God doesn't move. And then we sin again and we move further away, and so on and so on. And so it's harder for us to hear his voice. It's harder for us to maybe know right from wrong, to feel close to him, but it doesn't mean that he's moved. And I think that visual from the Holy Card, that makes me think of how he's reaching for us, but he gives us free will. And so we are in control of that. So is it more that we are not allowing him to be? Yeah, I think not allowing maybe so far that we don't even know, you don't know what you're missing. You don't know what it is you're looking for, what it is that's going to fill that God-shaped hole that only God can fill. So there, I think, hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you. So a comment here that I see in the chat box that I'm going to kind of springboard into an important question. So one of our participants tonight just noticed really great insights from the students, right? These young scholars, she says. And so I was wondering if maybe you could talk about your approach as an instructor through using art and music and literature. How is it that you have found you're able to engage the students and to help them deepen their understanding of not just the history of the church or theology, but deepen their personal relationship with Christ?
Yeah, so one thing for starters, just giving them that simple homework assignment of going, and I had no idea what Sebastian was going to bring back. And when that's what he brought back, I was floored. I hadn't thought about the connection between confession yet. So just him, a student taking that time to reflect. We often, sometimes force children to fit inside this box of how we think they should pray. And they can't do that, or they don't do that, or they're not aware of how to do that. And so you have to meet them where they are. And while it would be great if they could, keep rich journals like some saints did at a young age, it's not as likely as if you say, can you draw a picture, or can we just talk it out, or can you look at this picture that someone your age drew, and they notice things that we kind of are so far from that. Jesus tells us to be like little children. And that's what St. Therese talks about too. Her mission in writing her autobiography was to create faithful, childish hearts to love God. Jesus says that in scripture because we don't do it. As adults, we overthink things. And so kind of giving them ways to connect with God through means that they're used to, through song, and not, yes, I could give them Gregorian chant and get hope that they could find something out of it, but no, I'm going to give them songs that they can clearly hear the words. We're going to print off the lyrics and they can read them and it makes sense to them. So I think age appropriate prayer homework is really important, because that is prayer. I really firmly believe you don't have to just be kneeling beside your bed to pray and to connect with God. They are praying when they do that. And if you notice, if you were to look through my syllabus, I kind of explain in there, here are some tips of how to do your homework in a prayerful way. So yes, drawing a religious picture can be prayer, but if all your siblings are screaming around your head and throwing food, okay, that's not going to be very prayerful. So I give some tips there of, here's some ways that you can kind of escape the chaos, or create a prayerful space while not just simply praying a rosary, but doing your homework that is also prayerful.
That's great. Thank you. We've got good questions coming in. So still sticking with the teaching of our children here. One question is, I'm concerned that students believe that Jesus is only accessible through meeting the priest at confession or at church, such that the child grows up without the freedom to go to Jesus in prayer where they may be. Is availability and accessibility of Christ taught as well?
I think I kind of touched on that with what I just said too. So, absolutely. So what's the majority of our day, we don't spend at church, especially not children. It'd be nice if large families could get to mass early and, but normally we're getting there 2 minutes before mass starts so that we can endure if we have toddlers and babies and all sorts of things. So even at church, I think it's maybe harder for children to soak it all in. So I think in these assignments, trying to realize that, yes, God is everywhere. One of my suggestions on the syllabus is go find a place outside, under a tree or wherever, whatever is that space for you, because it's different for everyone and it always changes. For me right now, during the school year, it's the car pickup line. That's where I have my 30 minutes and I zone in. So it would be great. My husband's able to make it to daily mass in the morning and to go to the church, but it's not always as attainable for me. So yeah, I'm all for accessibility to Christ everywhere. And through spiritual writings, through the sacraments, through the church, it's all ways to help us get there. But Christ is everywhere. So yeah, and when we become mini tabernacles, we go out into the world, right? So that furthers that idea.
Thank you. Another question. I'm assuming the USCCB calendar will be used. Will there be any crossover with traditional calendar, Ember Days? Can you talk maybe about that?
Yeah, so definitely, USCCB calendar would be my standard, but I think another beauty of Scholé with having students in different traditions and in different locations, because even within the USCCB, my diocese decided to celebrate this feast, even though it's a movable feast for next year for this other, so, and they can talk about that. So some of my homework assignments or just opening questions might be something as simple as, hey, did you have any special feast days this week? Or, so very much not insisting that a student follow a certain Catholic calendar, but learning from each other would be a great way to to expose our minds to what else is out there. Even just certain things that aren't even liturgical calendar. Just if you live in a community that celebrates Our Lady of Guadalupe's feast day with more of a celebration, then that might be something you share, whereas someone else might have something else that they share. So yeah, I hope that answers that question.
Thank you. How often does a class like this meet?
So this class that I'm offering, it's 2 times a week for an hour and 15 minutes. It's a class for middle schoolers.
This is another question. I'll kind of speak to it. It's general about the classes in the Aquinas house, but a homeschooling mom asking about her son is older, he's 12. What are the ages for the classes? The last day to apply, and when do classes begin? So enrollment is ongoing right now for Scholé Academy, which includes the Aquinas house. We have enrollment that starts in February every year. St. Raphael School launches their enrollment in April, and then enrollment just continues through the summer. Our first day of classes is September 6th this year. We always start right after Labor Day. And so enrollment is ongoing, space available. We have a big spike in enrollment in February. We see another one around April, and we see another one in May, and then we see one more big spike in August. But we do have families that will join us in early September. So if you are interested in the classes, you can contact instructors directly through email. You can ask them questions if you're still kind of discerning which teachers are right for you or classes are right for you, but enrollment is ongoing. And we do offer courses for our older students as well. I'll just take a moment here to kind of showcase the full offerings. When you go to scholeacademy.com and then Houses of Studies Aquinas, scroll to the bottom. Some of our courses are academic year. The history course is academic. And then of course you can see where these classes are semester, meeting twice a week. Right now for 22-23, all of our course offerings are for middle and upper school. So for 9th to 12th grade, we have a Science and Catholic Church course. And then we also, for our upperclassmen, have 2 classes on encyclicals. And then our history course is middle school, and then Miss Monica's courses that we're talking about tonight on St. Teresa, they are for middle school students. Now, any class that you click on, you'll see that there is a target grade range. If your child falls below or above, it doesn't exclude them necessarily. So I want to encourage you to reach out to the instructor and just explain kind of the age of your student, and if you have questions, is this course right for them? Usually we have those conversations, let's say we have a 5th grader who's interested. We do want you to reach out to the instructor and just make sure that not just their academic skills, but their social emotional maturity is ready for the class as well. And then, as I had mentioned at the start of the hour, our goal is to build and develop more course offerings, ideally for grades 4 through 12. So that's our goal through time there is to increase course offerings. And I know tonight we have some in the audience that are interested from an instructor point of view. So if you're joining us, if you're a homeschooling parent who's also interested in hosting classes, the best way to do that is certainly to go to the Aquinas House of Studies landing page where we started tonight. Take a look at that, read through our mission and vision, who we are, and then you can go to under About Us, Employment, and you can read about our process there. There's a recruitment video that's very important for parents and educators who are interested in teaching classes. And then in general, if you have any questions, you can email us at support@scholeacademy.com and we can get back to you if you're interested in hosting classes with us.
And we are also very open to suggestions for what type of classes and content you are interested in and for what age groups. There's just a lot of curriculum out there, and more coming out. I just bought a couple books that are Theology of the Body and they have a K through 1 program, a 2 or 3 through 5 program, K through 2, 3 through 5, and 6 through 8. So there could be a whole class on that if that's something people are interested in. So if there's something that you're interested in and you're, oh man, I wish they had a class on this, please email us and let us know, because we have a variety of teachers who have a variety of experience teaching different things. It's definitely formative right now. So
yeah, that's a great point to mention that. Thank you for saying that, Monica. We absolutely do want to hear from our parents in terms of what you're looking for when you're coming to the Aquinas House, and what areas that you need support in terms of educating your children about the Catholic faith. The academic year courses meet twice a week, and they are $5.95 for the academic year, and a semester course meets twice a week, and those courses are $2.95 for the semester. So I know we had some questions about pricing. And again, when you look at any one of our course pages, forgive me here, we'll just go back to it. Any one of the course pages, when you click on a class, you'll see the teacher, the time, the section available, the pricing. We encourage you to read, of course, the description, the course syllabus that's provided. We also talk about scholarship skills. This is a standard layout for any of our classes, but we really want parents to understand kind of what are the prereqs for the course, what the student is developing, and then what they should have mastered prior to starting the course. This is very helpful because, again, you all as parents, you're the primary educators and we're partnering with you, so you know your child the best. And going through this is going to help you understand if the course is a good fit. But of course, if you have questions, you can also reach out to the instructor. We provide information about the course text and then the bio. And we also have our instructor bios under About Us, which is where you will find their emails and you can reach out to them. Their emails are also listed on their course syllabus. Let's see. We have a suggestion here. I wish you offered classes on the Catholic magisterium. The teaching of the popes are so fundamental and not taught in catechism. Yes, we agree. And so part of that is also why we are interested in teaching the encyclicals. It is important to teach what just not only the history of the popes and the church, but what has been written. And so I don't know, Monica, if you have any ideas or kind of suggestions for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. When you say not taught in catechism, I'm assuming you mean like in CCD classes, potentially. And I agree. We usually in religious education programs, you're going through the, basics a lot of the times, a lot of review, and then you get to scripture, sacraments, and just salvation history. So as you get to older grades, I think that teaching papal history and church history would be really wonderful, because many adults don't know the church history as it is, and you could go different avenues with that. You could start with early church fathers and read some of their writings, a combination of different things. Find ways to make it more engaging for different age groups, even for middle schoolers, I think. And I think they would find it fascinating. I think, they're getting maybe the basics of CCD teaching at church maybe, but you could add on a class, which is kind of the point and the goal of Scholé to have you, well, let's add on this extra class to complement what you're learning at school or at CCD.
We are also interested, I see a parent's comment about apologetics. Yes, that is something that we want to do for the upperclassmen. That is something we've even talked about prior to having the Aquinas House open. It's something we talk about in relation to the other houses as well. And we know that the upper grades, that is the time to do that, especially for students that have studied logic and they are ready for that deeper study and that deeper training in rhetoric. Go ahead, Monica.
And Bishop Robert Barron just is putting out a new apologetics course that I think would be a great, way to go maybe with our young people. It's called the New Apologetics, and could be something, I'm going to look into it because I think high schoolers would definitely love something like that. My husband took an apologetics class in high school, and it was foundational to his life as a Catholic. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, so something I want to say here, which is important to know, and I think one of the kind of special things about, special characteristics about Scholé Academy is that our instructors, they are contractors. So they propose the classes that they would like to teach, which is different from either online or traditional schools in that sense, where instructors come to us proposing courses that they want to teach. So one side of this is kind of the blue sky dreaming and, here's what we would like to do, here's what we would like to offer. And then the other piece of that is finding the right candidate. And sometimes candidates come to us with the courses. And then other times we have these great ideas and then we meet candidates who have their own ideas as well. And then it's just through really good conversation through that interview process where we land on courses that meet the needs that we hear that parents share with us, and then also courses certainly that align with our mission and vision, and in this case, align with the mission and vision of the Aquinas House of Studies. So just in terms of developing full classical Catholic curriculum, the idea there in looking at Scholé Academy's overall mission, just to kind of take us outside of the house for a moment. So Scholé Academy and the mission of the houses, the ecumenical mission there with our 3 houses, started with this idea from Mere Christianity, where you come into the great hall that C.S. Lewis talks about, and you're not meant to stay in that hall, but to pick your rooms to move into. So we think of ourselves in that sense as the Great Hall. It's where everyone unites around the Nicene Creed, and this is where we're studying math and science and Latin, Spanish, art. And from there, then we encourage families to take advantage of study within one of the houses. Students do not have to be practicing of that particular Christian tradition, but they will receive instruction from teachers who are living that specific Christian tradition. Just like we've been talking about tonight, all of the teachers are practicing Catholics in good standing. And so in terms of how the houses fit within Scholé Academy, they are the rooms off of the Great Hall. We do not have any plans for cross-house enrollment, although, again, when it comes to course development, that's kind of left for discussion. So at the moment, we do not have any plans for cross-house courses, but I wouldn't say never would we do that. So again, if you have a course proposal, please reach out to us and we can start that conversation. I know we're just past the top of the hour and I want to respect everyone's time. We do have a couple more questions that I'll just touch on. One is a specific suggestion, and all of these suggestions are saved. So please know that we appreciate when you're putting in the chat box some course ideas or in the Q&A. We will walk away tonight and really think on that and go back and reflect on your comments and questions. But this last one, could you combine a variety of topics to make a better confirmation course? Monica, I don't know if you want to speak to.
I mean, the question itself is very intriguing to me. We're using new confirmation curriculum at the church that I work at now. In our diocese, confirmation is 11th grade. I know that it's 8th grade, other grades. So that point alone would be, be curious to know what grades people might be interested in. When you say a better one, I'm assuming that means you're not too happy with what your parishes may be using, or maybe just the way that it's done. I've seen it done in so many different ways. I definitely think a confirmation class is something that is possible, and it excites me. The only caveat with that would be, and it would be something with my experience as a director of religious education, it would be maybe a contact with who your religious education director is and say, hey, you know, I can vouch for so-and-so being enrolled in this class. And it could be, and I'm willing to do that, email contact. You know, I can say, yes, they've completed these different classes. Some people are not willing to do that, but most of the time I've had it done on my end, other people from different parishes, you know. And so I think that is definitely possible. We have a lot of homeschool families who they'll do their own homeschooling, religious education prep, and then they join us for the sacrament. So I think that's cool. And I would love for you to reach out an email saying maybe what grades you're looking for, and maybe explain too what you aren't liking about what your current curriculum is and what you've seen that might be a nice fit. You said combining different programs. I think that's a great idea. There are a lot of really good programs out there too. So.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about that. That's something that's really important is, and something we're still trying to navigate and learn about, just in terms of how Scholé Academies, Aquinas House can build relationships with diocese and just in working with parishes and church communities, because we are online and obviously we work with families that are across North America and even outside of North America. So we recognize, you know, there are bridges there that we haven't even yet started to build. And the other one thing I want to say about that, just kind of as a call to action for parents that are here tonight, or if you're going to watch the recording later, one of the things that we are asking for, as I mentioned earlier, would be contributors. And this is one area where parents who are interested in what we're doing, and you'd like to hopefully share what we're doing with your parish or with other homeschooling families, or not necessarily only homeschooling families, but we will be having sometime after the start of the school year another meeting where contributors, and it's volunteer base, will come and just talk about the future of the Aquinas House. And part of that discussion also includes potential candidates for instructors, courses, and again, those relationships that we want to build, and seeking a priest for the house. And that's something we haven't yet secured. So if you know of a priest that you love, maybe, you know, it's a friend of your family, or, you know, certainly your priest of your parish that you just have a good relationship with. Our priests are always so busy, so we know that as well. This role doesn't require a lot of their time. It really just requires their, you know, their wisdom and their certainly love for education and specifically online education. So if you have a priest who's interested, or that they would just like to get to know more, we are looking for their spiritual guidance, and also that leadership that ensures that our mission and vision stays with the teaching of the church. And, you know, we just continue our work to build up the church and to support our families. Go ahead, Monica.
I see, Pamela, I see a response there that says what kind of confirmation curriculum you're looking for. And now I understand where you're coming from. And I completely agree. I would say, one, something you could do now is find a youth group, because usually those kids are excited to be there. But two, I think that's another beautiful thing about Scholé Academy, is that the families, you know, have similar values. And so usually the kids have similar values, and they're excited, they're there. And they also know that that's what's expected of them in the class. We just finished a confirmation year, and yeah, there's, you know, even though they're older students, they're there maybe because their parents told them to go, and they're not necessarily excited. And it's hard for the ones who are excited to stay excited, right? So I think it's a great opportunity through Scholé to build that faith community, because you don't necessarily need to be in the same place. This is something I've learned as a military spouse. I've made so many beautiful friends at different Catholic churches through different avenues, faith friends, that I am still in good touch with, or we pray for each other and I don't talk to them that often. So you don't have to be in the same town, for that spiritual faith community, especially because your faith is so personal. So it's kind of just good to be there and to know I'm not alone in actually being excited about my faith. And then again, third part is you learn from each other too. Oh, no one in my parish, is going to this conference or going to adoration, but hey, that guy in Wisconsin, he goes to adoration every Friday. Maybe I'm going to look up something in my area. And so it helps keep the wheels turning for other high schoolers, other young people. So yeah, in general, I think Scholé is cool for that reason, for all their classes, really, whether it's about Latin or anything else, these people are excited about reading, excited about their faith, whatever it may be. And it's really special.
Thank you, Monica. Just one last comment in terms of the bell schedule for our courses. We do operate on the Eastern time zone. So our first class is at 8 a.m. And our middle and high school classes run 60 to 75 minutes. So our last 2 class hours of the day start at 3:30 and 5 p.m. Eastern. And so I know there were some questions about kind of after school hours. And this is an idea that we're also exploring at St. Raphael School. So at the moment, those after school hours are 3:30 and 5 p.m. Eastern. But again, if there are ideas and proposals, that's something that I would really love to receive in email, support@scholeacademy.com, and we can go from there. Just a couple more questions about classes. All of our classes are live, so we don't offer asynchronous courses where a group could watch a recording. Enrollment is based on each seat. And so if you're wanting a class that's designed for a group, that's something that we can do. And there are some advantages to that. But in terms of financial assistance or kind of working with family budgets, we don't currently offer scholarships for classes or clergy discounts, but we do not want to turn away families. So I always take those requests on a case-by-case basis. So if there's a need for yourself or just a friend or a family that you know about, please do let us know and email us. We always try our best to work with our families.
I would say also reach out to your parish, to your pastor and to your diocese, because they might be able to do something. A lot of dioceses do that for adult faith formation. They'll subscribe to something or help subsidize costs for someone, and just an individual pastor may be able, they want to help people out, especially with young people and education. So
that's great. Well, we are over time, but it's been such a great time, and I am so grateful for all of you attending tonight. This event has been recorded, and we will be providing everyone that's registered with a recording. The link will also be available. Presbyter, correct me if I'm wrong. We post the events on the website, so they'll live on the website for families to see, and possibly our YouTube channel. I might, if I'm wrong on the YouTube channel, it does exist on our Scholé Academy events page, but oh good, Presbyter is giving me a thumbs up. So registered participants, you'll get an email with the link for the recording, but then it will also live online, so you can share it with other families maybe who did not register and who are not here tonight, or your parish priest. You can share it with them as well so they can learn about what we're doing. And again, we thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Monica,
thank you so much
for presenting tonight and for really kicking this off, because again, this was our first come and see for the Aquinas house. Support@scholeacademy.com goes to the admin team, which is myself, Presbytera, our culture and events coordinator, and our educational services coordinator. So if you're looking for myself, the director and principal of Scholé Academy, it will come to me. If you are looking for Presbytera for St. Raphael's School, or just Scholé Academy questions in general, you cannot go wrong by sending it to support@scholeacademy.com. And individual teacher emails are online, scholeacademy.com, under About Us. You'll find instructors. Monica has put her email. Let me make sure it goes out to everybody. You can see that as well, and directly email Monica if you have questions about her courses or about the house as well. So thank you again. Have a good night. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.